Good evening and welcome to Crosstalk, the Kingdom Current Affairs program where we discuss current matters that affect us as believers and how we impact general society. Tonight, I'm actually privileged and I'm really happy to have with us Archbishop Jackson Ole Sapit, who is the Archbishop of the Anglican Church of Kenya. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you. My name is Charles Opiyo, and today we want to talk matters, state of the nation, state of the church, and how these two issues affect our day-to-day life. Now, our window of conversation may not be able to cover just about all the matters we would like, but since I have the Archbishop here, I'd really like to get to some salient issues, key issues that I think are questions in our mind, sometimes speculations, some rumors that we may want to handle and deal with. And I think that the beginning one would be the whole positioning of church and state, Archbishop, because it seems that recently, and especially with the current scenarios we have in the nation, where we all have, people call it the Gen Z movement, people call it all sorts of things, but I think one of the big issues that arose with it is sometimes, rightly so, sometimes maybe just a speculation, is that the posture of the church concerning this. And unfortunately, the church is being bundled with politicians. We are being seen to be part and parcel of what's going on. Maybe I just want to have your thoughts on that as we look at the other issues. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Charles.
Yes.
And thank you, Family TV, for inviting me.
Yes.
And give me the opportunity to be here and have this conversation.
Yes.
Not just here in studio, but with Kenyans who are watching us.
Yes.
So thank you so much. The question, church and state. You know, there is always a confusion because these are two institutions that has to cross their path
Yes.
one way or the other, because the church exists and operate within a state.
Yes.
Like in our country, Kenya.
Yes.
We are confined by the boundaries of the nation called Kenya,
Yes.
where the church operates and the state operates.
Yes.
The other crossing point is that we are serving the same people.
Yes.
So the same citizenry that the nation and the state serve are the
Yes.
very people that the church serves.
Yes.
And therefore, you cannot paint a picture that you have the church completely there
Yes.
and the state completely there,
Yes.
because we have to meet and interact when we are serving the people whom we are serving.
True.
The other correlation is that both church and state are led by people. And these people have many interactions, because when I'm in the church and politicians come as members, then I don't see them as state.
Yes.
I see them as members of the church.
Yes, yes.
And therefore, when they enter to worship,
Yes.
They are part of that church.
Yes.
So to draw a line completely and say this is a dividing line,
Yes.
and there is no meeting point,
Yes.
is a wrong perception. So I want to put a picture. But the functions of the state and the church are distinct. Because the church is to serve Kenyans and serve people spiritually, but we also serve them relationship-wise, and we serve them to be able to, handle their lives in a way that is godly, but also serve them in their needs.
Yes.
Because the church served as Jesus served. Jesus healed the sick, he fed the hungry, he was concerned about everyday life, and he was concerned about brokenness in our families. And that's why he came to preach the gospel that bring wholesomeness to life. And those are the areas that the church serves, which again cross path with what the state do. Because when we are running hospitals as a church, because we have a calling and a duty to provide health care, we don't take the part of government, but we complement what government has to do.
Yes.
And in that we have to, learn to work within the policies and framework that is set by the state, because they are the lead in this area. They are the ones who develop policy. They are the ones who say all what we do ourselves is to provide a supplementary and complementary service that reach out where the need is. The state has a responsibility to make sure that every Kenyan is secure wherever they are, have a responsibility to look that Kenya is growing economically, that people can have their aspirations, and therefore they have a distinct role, and we have a distinct role, but in these roles, there are areas that we interlink, even in service delivery, leave just a part of, when we meet in the church, but also when we are out there in the villages.
Okay.
We are still doing things that are common.
Part of the work of the church in that conversation and relationship would be to give the moral fabric by which these things are established. In other words, we do not expect a politician to honestly carry out the thought process you've just talked about, at least not the politicians that we have been exposed to as a nation historically. And so if that would be the position, the question then arises, and we've seen this. I mean, you were part of the political process at Bomas, and you saw a lot of things, and there are things you stood for. The question that must be asked today, are those aspirations still being held on to?
The church is not under the state
Yes.
on matters godly because we are under God,
Yes.
but we are under the state in matters following the law.
Yes.
So I need us to distinguish those two, because the church must also operate within the framework of the law of the land.
Yes.
So at that point,
Yes.
by following the law, we have to be under whatever law and framework has been.
Exactly.
But when it comes to worship
Yes.
and, operating at the realm of what we can call, the spiritual realm,
Yes.
we are not under the state.
Okay.
And therefore, that has to be clear.
Yes.
The next part of what you're asking is, has the church played her role? And I want to say, what we call church today can be very confusing.
Okay.
Because we have a whole array of churches with, their understanding and interpretation of the Bible.
Yes.
And even when it comes to relationships, we have different, approaches to those relationships.
Yes.
But let me say, from where I sit, under the umbrella of the Anglican Church, and also what we call the National Council of Churches of Kenya, fraternity, where we belong. And also I can attest that with the Catholic fraternity, the KCCB, we have always made a stand that does not, seem to be we are making on behalf of the state. And we have challenged systems, and we have challenged, decisions made by the state. A very near case in point is Finance Bill 2024.
Yes.
I went personally to the select committee, which was dealing with the budget on what they call public participation. I presented a 25-point document challenging the taxation regime that the government was introducing, which we felt was affecting Kenyans. And we did not just challenge, we pronounced what was in the bill, we said how it is going to affect Kenyans, and we gave our proposals. And we were opposed to it. But Parliament went ahead to pass it against the guidance and the challenge that we have put. I also want to say it has been on record and the media many a times that have been able to challenge, and other church leaders have been able to challenge systems that are happening. But what people get confused, like let me go to Bomas, because I was confused at Bomas. We were present in Bomas as religious leaders, and many of us were there from all faith, the Muslims, the Christians, the Hindu Council, and we purposed to be in Bomas to pray for the country just before the elections were released. We were not privy which side was going to be announced, but we were in Bomas to offer prayers. But when I
think that is important to clear up, because there's always been an association.
People always thought that I have been bought because I was the one who led prayers. But we were to lead prayers, 7 of us. Okay. Actually, 7 of us were to lead prayers. But when the fracas happened, and Kenyans will remember what happened, the fracas happened and we all disappeared from the scene. And when we came back, only a handful of us made it back. A lot of them ran away, or they got away out of Bomas. So a handful of us came back. In that confusion, when now we stood and the chair of the commission came in, I think maybe because I'm the tallest, the police officer who was in charge of Bomas then just saw me and said, Archbishop, have this mic, pray for the nation. Okay. So what did I do in that state? As a responsible citizen is to pray for peace. Absolutely. Because we did not know what was going to happen. And I still remember my words. I thank God that the mic went a little bit off. So when I was trying to get the sound is when I was thinking, what will I say in such a scenario? So I just said these words. Kenyans, the anxious moment has come. Whoever is going to win this election, celebrate magnanimously and take Kenya as yours, all of it. Whoever loses, Don't go to the street.
Yes.
Take the court process, because that will give us peace.
Yes.
Then I said to the Kenyan people, you have children to take back to school.
Yes.
Your businesses to protect. We have a country to take care of. And I said a very short prayer. I said, Lord, in every election point, we take ourselves to the brink. But always before we fall, you bounce us back. Yes. It is time to give us our country back. Bounce us back. Yes. Give us to the right path of peace. And I said, amen. Yes. But coming out of there, the prayer was turned to be a demon. And I did not know how can a prayer...
At least, and this is why we like having this conversation.
Yes.
Because this conversation brings clarity.
Yes.
If we don't hear clarity like that, it takes away the public perception of where the church stands. Yeah. And then I think I want you to, now that we've gotten that out of the picture, so for anybody who was assuming you were privy and in agreement...
I can also say, take you a little back.
Yes.
During, after 2017 election,
yes,
when Raila wanted to swear himself,
yes,
you know, it was only me who stood out and said to the government of the day, be the sober side. If Raila must swear himself in, let him do it in a peaceful environment.
Yes.
Don't harass people, don't kill anybody.
Yes.
The best he can do is to swear himself in and go home, because he has no constitutional backing to take him to State House.
Yes.
And, you know, I was demonized then. And I thank God, because the side that demonized me that time was the side that was praising me at Bomas. You know, so I went at 360 degrees.
Yes, so that gives a lot of clarity. And because
But even that, you know, it turned out that when they heard my voice and they removed police, what happened was peace, as I predicted. So sometimes you get confused, but I get solace that whenever I speak, I don't speak for myself, and I know I don't speak rushingly. Yes. I speak what I think God is telling me to say.
Absolutely. So I think that brings us to another conversation that's going on that, again, I think maybe with you sitting here, clarity will come. I, at least, have had a briefing to look into the document, and I know what everybody, and I'm talking about the Presidential Affairs Task Force. And so many conversations around it, and the only word coming out is a conversation about church regulation. Church regulation. So everybody assumes, number one, that task force was tasked with one item called church and how to regulate it. So having read it, I discovered it was a much wider document. It was and a lot of bigger stakeholders were involved. Maybe you want to shed light a bit on that so that we can discuss a few things about it before we go into the break.
Yes, we all know that that task force was formed after what we saw in Shakahola.
Yes.
And the horrific things that came out of Shakahola in the name of church, because it was a pastor who led people to die en masse. And we also challenged the state, where was the state for all that period when people are being killed and buried without the apparatus of security not knowing it. Yes. But, you know, we all raise those questions. And the government formed a task force that went around to ask questions. I participated because I was asked questions. I was not part of the task force, but I participated in you know, raising the questions and answering what were some of the things that they were looking for. And the church regulation bit came up. And for us, we thought the government cannot regulate church because it may not have the full understanding of how church operates and what church means in terms of doctrine, in terms of, you know, to check whether there is any heretical teaching or no heresies. It is only the church that can self-regulate.
Yes, so Bishop, allow me, Archbishop, to take a break there. Let us take a few breaks and we'll come back on exactly that issue. Because that, I think, is the elephant in the room. Yes. The assumption that government wants to regulate church, and it's good to hear, and again, there are some groups that thought there's a clique within the church structure that is pro-regulation to control others. So it's good you're beginning to clarify the very basis on that conversation. We'll be back after the break.
We are living in a lost and broken world, constantly bombarded by messages of hate and atrocities. But with God, we can overcome. Find hope and restoration on the go through life-changing shows on the Family Media app.
And then you will lose yourself and gain the world. And Jesus said, what good is it
Get to stream Family TV and Family Radio 316 straight from your phone. Catch up on a show you missed or create video streaming playlists by saving and watching videos from our huge variety of shows at your own convenience. Download the Family Media app, available for all Android and iOS users on the Google Play Store and Apple Store respectively. Family Media, keeping Jesus on the airwaves.
Welcome back. Before we went to the break, we were discussing the issue that has been assumed to be a presidential task force on regulation of churches. But as we went to the break, the Archbishop was clearly giving us clarity that such a matter is not part of that conversation, but there are certain core issues that we do agree are pertinent to what needed to have been handled. So, Archbishop, you were saying about the issue of church regulation and where there's a challenge in that matter.
Yeah,
Yes.
you know, in our conversation then when we were contributing to the task force,
Yes.
is that the state cannot regulate the churches because it has no capacity
Yes.
in terms of interpretation of scripture, you know, knowing where heresies are.
Yes.
It is only church that can self-regulate.
Absolutely.
And we did actually recommend that the church can self-regulate by enabling each member church to join an umbrella body, so that within the umbrella bodies, regulations can happen. For example, the KCCB regulates all the Catholic fraternity, and the NCCK regulate all the member churches, which are over 27 member churches,
Yes.
part of NCCK. And the Evangelical Alliance can regulate those who are members of the Evangelical Alliance, and the Pentecostals, you know, fraternity can self-regulate under the umbrella body. And the indigenous churches, you know, African instituted churches can also self-regulate within their body, because we have those bodies.
Yes.
And those are the bodies that can now be held accountable if somebody who is within their member, umbrella member,
Yes.
go overboard in terms of Christian teaching and bring, you know, a teaching that is against the Bible.
Yes.
And we have seen quite a number. You remember a few years ago in Nakuru, Naivasha area, there was a sect that came and said the end of the world is coming.
Yes.
And they were to dig holes, to go and live inside the holes, because something was going to happen on the service,
Yes.
but which they can save themselves under. We have seen churches barring people from going to hospital, saying they will pray and they will get healed even when they are not getting healed, and they leave them to die at home. Those are the things that we said, you know, the churches can be able to trace that and regulate and recommend to the government whoever is not practicing the way as it should be for the registration.
Okay.
But the need for, you know, having a clear path on how do we register churches, we said that there must be a way. So that not everybody who wakes up every morning say, I'm going to register a church. Because we are also seeing that we are now having churches that are, you know, almost family or personal, that people are registering. And we were asking under which umbrella body, who have vetted their theology, who have vetted, you know, because now when you come to an umbrella body like NCCK, before somebody apply, there is a committee on membership who traces that member who want to be registered, what is their theology, what is their teaching, and then they are also told their guidelines. For you to remain in this body, these are the guidelines.
Yes.
And I think that is a kind of, you know, framework we need to see, so that it's not government regulating to say who to be registered or not to be registered, or who to be deregistered. It is the umbrella bodies that will be able to give that direction. There was a lot of consultation. It is not a one-man show. It was not that task force alone or the chair, but I think it is views considering a very wide range of conversation.
All right, and Archbishop, because I hear, for me, this is where the challenges now come. And before I get into the microcosm of the church, the task force apparently was for the religious community.
Yes.
It included the Muslims, it included the Hindus, and like you said, the African religions and everything else.
Yes.
And now the big question comes around the matter of registration. Where do we draw the line between freedom of people gathering to worship and them having to be part of something? Are we not then again bringing government into a space that it should not be in? Isn't that going to be a major challenge?
I think the way we want to look at it is from the point of view of safeguard.
Yes.
Now, let's go back to Shakahola. In the freedom of worship, are we free to kill?
Yes. So here's the question.
Yes.
So let me take you back on the same question.
Yeah.
And here's the catch-22. While we're not free to kill, legally, how can you stop somebody who's believed a lie from following through on the lie? Which law can we apply to stop them?
By stopping the lie.
So how do we stop the lie?
The stopping of the lie
Yes.
is that which we are saying.
Yes.
We have to self-regulate
Yes.
by saying,
Yes.
is my preaching
Yes.
leading people to death? So that the family that is able to interpret my preaching,
Yes.
whether it is aligned with the gospel,
Exactly.
will say, okay, you are not operating within the church.
Yes.
If the government will allow you to do things outside,
Yes.
then don't call yourself a Christian or
All
don't
right.
use the name
term.
of the Bible,
Yes.
so that you associate and then you can now be held accountable.
Don't we have enough laws within the Constitution that can deal with once a crime is committed or when a crime is being perpetuated? Because deregistering me will not stop me from doing what I'm doing, while registering me does not guarantee that I'm going to be right. Because if we make it just registration, again, we're not touching the real problem, are we?
Registration might not be answer.
Yes.
But my question is, can we find a framework
Yes.
of not waiting until the crime happens?
Yes.
Because again, if you
Yes.
wait until I commit a crime,
Yes.
and I've shown all the signs,
Yes.
we normally read by the signs,
Yeah.
and we begin to know,
Yes.
when you are going this direction,
Yes.
the end result will be that. So if we read those signs, do we wait until somebody dies? And I think we have, as you say rightly, we have enough laws.
Yes.
But to handle a crime, but I think the safeguard thing is
Yes.
not what we have developed as a
Yes.
country
Yes.
and as a church.
Yes.
And I was in Britain the other day, and what the church is now struggling is to come up with safeguard policies. Because, and you can see the church in that part of the world existed for over 2,000 years,
Yes, indeed.
since the time of the apostles.
Yes.
And it is now they are struggling to come up with safeguard policies. We have not even begun to discuss here in Kenya,
Yes.
church by church, their safeguard policies. And I think we need, even as a government and all of us, to develop safeguard policies in the place of work,
Yes.
in the economic front,
Yes.
in the church, wherever people are gathered,
Yes.
in schools. We need these safeguard policies that will enable us to track things before they happen, and read the signs of the times and make sure that there are enough preventive measures. Because I think for us as church, prevention is better than cure.
Absolutely.
So if we can be able to prevent,
Yes.
and we are thinking, what the task force was struggling to come up with, it may not be a perfect document,
Yes.
it's a document that will help us to do a lot of prevention other than waiting
Yes.
until Shakahola happens
Yes.
for us to respond as a country. It is us internally who are able to read the Bible,
Yes.
as what the
It's
Bible
true.
is saying, and just simply call ourselves to practice what the Bible is saying. Yeah.
So let me bring one more matter that I think would be of interest. I'm sure it's in everybody's lips right now because it has just happened. The issue of the reshuffle of the cabinet, because that's what it's being called now. It's not being called a new cabinet.
Yes.
It's just being called a reshuffle
Yes.
with a few players in, and then what it's looking like. And what would be two positions, and you're free not to answer the second one, which is your personal opinion, and what would you think would be the right position of the church on a matter like this? Providing direction in terms of response to what has been done, because there is an argument for the fact that the people's opinions have not been taken into consideration, querying some of the people in the cabinet, and yet we have a president who claims that he basically, the question is, you're saying that you have consulted. Is this the result of the consultation with the history of some of the people here being questioned?
All what Kenyans are asking is good governance. What Kenyans are asking is prudent management of resources. What Kenyans are asking are, doing the right priorities to alleviate the current high cost of living for Kenyans and put Kenya on the trajectory of growth. And the cabinet is very critical because it is the one handling resources ministry by ministry that are going to help us. So what I will say is the decision of the president, one, when he reached out to the opposition, now we seem not to have an opposition in parliament, which undermine our democratic, conversation, especially in parliament. Because parliament is where many things are debated. And if we don't have now strong debaters in the opposition to put to check, what government position is, because, anything brought by cabinet will be taken to parliament for it to be dealt as law in bills that are, initiated by government. Now we don't have a strong opposition to be able to challenge. And that's a very big problem, because now parliament will be a lame duck. It will not be able to give us what we want, because it does not represent the democracy we wanted with a multi-party democracy. So that's one area that I see when the opposition leaders are approached from, especially from the political class. My other view was, my expectation was that the president was not going to get people in his cabinet who are politicians. As the 2010 constitution separated cabinet from parliament. That's why we began appointing people who are not parliamentarians to the cabinet. Because we used to have members of parliament as a cabinet, some ministers and assistant ministers. And we thought, somebody with already politically engaged may not be the one directing the ministry, so that we have the government running and the politics of parliaments and others will be running and giving check to the executive. Now, again, bringing all members of parliament, the losers of the last election, and those who are already in parliament, and particularly those who for opposition, to fill the position of cabinet, now defeat the spirit of the constitution of 2010. I expected the president to bring to Kenyans cabinet from technocrats, from the private sector, from the business community, from internationally acclaimed organization. He had a leeway to recall some of our best brains in the UN or other bodies to come and help us, because we are struggling. How do we fix this thing? How do we curb the kind of mismanagement of resources that we have seen? So my take is, he should have, in his wide consultation, I don't know whether there was any voice that raised to him that please give us a cabinet, and I think that's what the agencies were saying. Give us a cabinet that will give Kenyans hope. You remember during the times of Moi, there was a time he brought his dream team.
The dream team.
He brought
and
it
toned people down.
Completely.
The Leakies and all of them.
Outside of the known. I thought the president now would have given us people from the unknown, who are not even players in the politics of Kenya, to be able to help us fix the things that are problems.
So, having heard you on that, do you believe, for that reason, the church must have to stand up much stronger now and become a voice of such matters and begin to declare its position?
If we all stop, even the current cabinet, if they all stop anything self-interest, and begin to ask themselves what Kenyans need, we can change. And we don't have to wait for an angel to come and change us. God will use whatever we have to change this country. And I still believe if they go to that parliament with a mindset of change, and if the president have believed in himself that he's going to change, he has a capacity. And if we can give them a benefit of a doubt, but we have to remind them that they are coming in with a premise that Kenyans have cried for this restructuring to happen. Will they make Kenyans cry again? Are they going to make Kenyans to go back to where we were? And I also want to remind the leadership of this country that the questions Gen Zs were raising were not concerns of the young people. It is a concern of every Kenyan. It's just every other Kenyan have not been in the streets, but everybody is talking about mismanagement of resources, is talking about wastages, is talking about, we want hope. And if we can be able to get that hope, if the current team can give us that hope, let it be. But we are also reminding the Genesis that they have to participate in making that future, not by destroying what we already have, but by building on what we already have, and we all yearn to correct things so that we have a better future for them, and not only for them, for generations to come after them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Archbishop. Thank you for making time in your busy schedule to be able to have this conversation with us.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of clarity has come and a lot more are going to be able to understand the position and the clarity of the church. That's what we try to do at Crosstalk. We try to bring you into the understanding that the church is not, we've not lost hope. There's a lot happening. There are leaders standing. There are those who are not taking a side. They are taking a stand. And that makes a big difference. So until next time, good night. And please remember to share such conversations with your network so that we can continue to grow and learn and take our responsibilities. God bless you.
Thank you.